All right, guys, today we are going to discuss the subject, there is nothing wrong with me. But before we do that, I should introduce myself. I am Jen Johnson. You are watching Thought by Thought Healing. I am a chronic pain coach, but I get on this YouTube channel or this podcast and I share my own healing journey and just tips that I have found that are helpful to walk out of chronic pain and chronic symptoms. And one of those things that's often talked about is this subject of, quote, there is nothing wrong with me, unquote. And that is a really important message that we would need to be sending our bodies. And the reason that it's so powerful is the big question. So why does it have such an effect? And actually, I should pause and say that if you have not already been saying this to yourself and have already not come to the understanding that there is nothing wrong with you, I would keep your hands or your fingers near that pause button because you will want to pause during this video and try these things because it is important. And here's why. If you have neuroplastic pain or you have mind-body pain, neural circuit pain, TMS, whatever you want to call it, they're all synonyms. That was confusing for me while I was healing. So if you have this, then that means that there is nothing wrong with your body. That means functionally you are okay. And the reason that it is so powerful to claim that is that whether you know it or not, probably you had a lot of fear that there was something wrong with you physically. For example, I was terrified to eat certain foods because I thought that my stomach wasn't able to process them, and I thought that there was something wrong with my gut. I was also afraid that there was something wrong with my feet. I actually remember thinking one time, maybe I should limit how many steps I take today because maybe I only have 10,000 left before I won't be able to walk anymore. And these subconscious thoughts are if we're perfectly honest, they're scary. Even though I should speak for myself, I definitely operated kind of out of this place of I'm okay, I'm strong. I didn't let people see that this was literally ruining and controlling my life and my brain. I don't know about you, but the fact that I was in chronic pain and symptoms galore really dominated everything, even though I don't know that I fully acknowledged it. I was terrified. And so when we can come in, when we realize it's neural pathway pain and say, there's nothing wrong with my body, that is the answer to the fear. That is the truth that quiets the fear. And that truth is what sets you free. And that's why it's so powerful. So if you haven't done this before, if you're new to this journey, if you're new to understanding neural pathways and autonomic nervous system and enteric nervous system and all these systems that the brain uses, these neural pathways to control and influence and affect your bodies. If you're new to this, then I would press the pause button and take a second to actually say, oh my gosh, there's nothing wrong with me. For months, when I discovered this, I would pause throughout my day because I had chronic pain, as in it never stopped. And so I would stop occasionally and just say, okay, there is nothing wrong with me. When I started introducing all the things, the physical movements, the foods, the activities, I would say, there's nothing wrong with me. I can do this. And it is true. Just because you have pain or symptom in a certain part of your body does not mean there's something wrong with you. And we know this now from neuroscience. And so part of the battle, the big battle, and I would venture to say that it's a big part of the battle for most people who have chronic symptoms. It's just this piece of learning to claim, know, and believe. You do want to get to the point where your brain and your body believe there's nothing wrong with me. And so it needs to be repetitive and heartfelt and compassionate. Howard Schubiner talks about 3 ways to kind of address this. And one of them is as if you are talking to a child that is scared of the dark. And so you're talking to yourself or your symptom and using really compassionate kindness towards this child who is scared. And when a child comes to you and they are scared, we're not rude. We don't dismiss. We get down on their level and we are compassionate and we say, there's no monster in the closet. Here, let's go look. And you show them the closet. And so that's one way that you can approach your body in a way that is kind and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. And we are learning to heal. Or you can talk to it like it is a child throwing a temper tantrum. And you can say, I see you. I see the symptoms. I see that you're throwing a fit. But I actually know that despite the fact that you're here, there's nothing wrong with me. And so I'm going to keep doing this thing that I am doing. And you can choose to not be controlled by the child throwing the temper tantrum. The third way that Howard Schubiner talks about is this bully aspect of treating your pain like it's a bully. And then you can say, bring it on. I am safe. I am okay. There's nothing wrong with my body and I can take more pain, so give it to me. And that assurance and that confidence and that compassion in all three of those scenarios are all based in truth that there's nothing wrong with your body. They're in empowerment or confidence and in compassion and kindness in your voice. So this idea of teaching your body and teaching your brain that you're okay and there's nothing wrong. I am safe. I am okay. Again, you might want to pause this video and try all three of those different scenarios and see if they work for you. For me, it depended on what type of issue I was working with, where my brain was in that moment, on which of those three worked for me. So give them a try and see if it helps to calm your nervous system down, because if your brain is in fear, we know that fear, frustration, dread, anger, rage, shame, all these emotions, they do cause a nervous system response that causes the brain or causes the pain in your body. And so we are calming that fear by telling it the truth. There's nothing wrong. Truth is always freeing. And that leads me to the other thing. And so a lot of people ask me, like, well, do I have to do more than this? And it depends on the mind-body coach that you're talking to. And so for me, I actually specialize more. I am more passionate about looking at what are the other things, what are the emotions, what are the more subtle things that are not as obvious, that are causing those same emotions that are then causing this symptom response in the brain and then in the body. And so those, we also need truth. Now, but I'm not talking about this in this session. I do know that most of my videos are revolving around emotions, because when we're talking about chronic pain and symptoms, we are talking about emotions. But specifically today, I'm just talking about your emotional response to the symptoms and the fear that there's something wrong with you. And so it is important to spend time on this, and a good amount of time reassuring your brain there's nothing wrong. So, but let's say you do have something wrong, quote unquote, you have an infection, you have a cold, you have some sort of real physical symptom in your body. This same attitude applies, because the brain can either manifest a symptom all on its own, or it can amplify that symptom. So we want to make sure that we are still having that attitude of confidence, assurance, empowerment when we are even dealing with, let's say, a cold. So I'm going to use a term that I don't like, but people will often joke about the man cold, and I don't actually like gendered insults. But the point of that comment is not about a gender. It is about the fact that how you treat your symptoms will amplify or not amplify it. So if you have a cold, the amount that you react to it, the amount of power you give to it, does matter, because the brain can amplify a real thing. You actually have a cold, or you actually have an infection. You have an autoimmune disease. This type of mind-body work can also still apply to real structural problems in the body, because the way that we respond, again, makes it worse or makes it better. So I treat everything, every symptom that comes my way, I try, with the exception of bees. I do not like bees, and I have not done work around bees yet, because They're terrifying. But everything else, I try to reduce my reaction to it. How much power am I going to give that thing, including pain and symptoms, chronic insomnia, all the things? How much power am I going to give it? How much power am I going to allow that thing, whether it's real or not, to have over me? And that will change how intense that symptom is. So really it comes down to kind of letting it go and not letting it become something that is huge. And that idea of letting go does have freedom in your body, because really, how important is that thing? Let's be honest. How big of a deal is it if I get stung by a bee? Not that much. Okay, this is really inspiring. I'm probably going to work on this now. So it's really not that big of a deal. If I can handle and have come through chronic pain, I can absolutely handle a bee sting. And that's how we want to treat life. We want to look at it like, is this thing that? Is it worth the reaction and the fear that I'm allowing it to have? In what ways, how can I approach this? I could say, I will be fine with this cold. I would be okay if I got stung by this bee. Just kind of radical acceptance. It's not a big deal, because it's actually not. But when we allow our brains to amplify things, and sometimes this is not your fault, because there may have been something in your childhood that happened. Maybe I was stung by a bunch of bees. I did sit on a bee once in a swing. I was not planning on talking about this. I did sit on a bee once, and that was pretty traumatic. And so maybe that is why, for me, bees are just kind of this horrible thing. So there might be something in your childhood that has taught you to fear something, whether it's symptoms. If you grew up with a hypochondriac, then you're going to have a wired reaction to symptoms, that they are more dangerous than they actually are. Our bodies are intended to heal, and we are okay, and they will heal. But if we continue to fear them, then that nervous system will amplify it and will perpetuate and actually make things become chronic at times. So practice this idea of radical acceptance, letting it go, and saying and teaching yourself, your brain, and your mind, there is nothing wrong with me. I am okay. I am safe. I am going to live my life how was intended to live my life, which is fully, and I am not going to fear. I do not have to be afraid of these symptoms. Try it. Pause this or turn it off and try to write a list of empowering statements on how you get to choose how you're going to react to your symptoms, because we know through neuroplastic pain, through all the brain science, and if you don't have the background of pain neuroscience yet, There are many people that are doing PNE, pain neuroscience education, because that's the first step that you want towards healing, is to understand how and why the brain is sending messages and sending these symptoms to your body. That's where a lot of the knowledge and empowerment comes, so that you can then start navigating your own brain, because your brain is wired much differently than mine. And so you want to have that power to be able to overcome some of these emotional beliefs, thoughts, attitudes that are really dominating your brain, whether it's subconscious or conscious. So hope that's encouraging. Start talking to yourself in a sense that there is nothing wrong with you, because there isn't. Well, there probably isn't. For most of my watchers, there's nothing wrong with you. All right. Thanks, you guys. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next time.